So, New Zealand can be described as the 8th continent. When you look at our land area and combine it with the continental shelf under the water, it is a large area to consider. It's large to consider its biodiversity, its endemism, and the very space it occupies on the global tectonic system. Its history has defined it. And so a lot of this stuff I don't need to tell most of the people in this room, but its unique endemism is a core part of what makes it what it is today. And actually it's why we have such a dilemma in the field of conservation, restoration, because there's so many things. And I can't remember the exact number, but if someone said it earlier, if there's 3,000 odd endangered species, you know that in, someone told me, so right now I'm hoping it's true, that in England they have one endemic species. And so even if that's only roughly true, the variation is enormous. And so this is something that is special. Rudyard Kipling described New Zealand as the last, loneliest and loveliest. Last because we're one of the last places on the globe to be inhabited, and all the things that go with that. Loneliest because we're so far from everywhere else. And that isolation has brought with it its unique set of circumstances. And loveliest, and I don't need to tell you why that is. If you see our tourism numbers doubling and going to previously inconsidered or unconsidered numbers, you'll understand that the rest of the world sees this place as a lovely natural destination. Our nature is actually central to our identity. It is core to being a Kiwi. It's on our money, it's on our passports, it's on our road signs, it embodies our national teams, it's everywhere. And when I thought this morning about the welcome that we got, the spiritual connection between our nature, our people and our places is something special. And you don't know it when you're living in it. And for those of you who have been overseas and had the big OE, it's when you come back that you appreciate how core to being a Kiwi, to being a New Zealander, actually our nature is. It's fundamental to the way we see the world. So this is just to try and exemplify that point, which is, it's our nature is unique, but the double entendre, I think Radar would tell me that is our nature of the type of people we are, the way we see the world, the values we attribute to our national environment, the way it connects to our social well-being, the way it connects to our economic well-being, and the way that it connects to our wider environmental and sustainability is absolutely critical. And so we need to think about our natural environment being part of the nature of who we are. I've made a little note here, so if you just bear with me for a minute. It's really important to understand that to actually make a difference, we're beginning to see a change in the way we think about our nature. I mean, the number of people in this room is a credit to that. The nature of the work and the projects and the undertaking. We've seen a renaissance in natural place management, I guess. And if I think about, in 2008, Al Morrison, who was the Director General of Conservation, he'd worked out somehow, with the help of all our clever scientists in the Department of Conservation, that one way or another, depending on how you measure it, we're working on between 10 and 15% of New Zealand. And so I was working on Fiordland then, which is sort of, in chunk terms, a big chunk of New Zealand. And so I thought, oh no, that can't be right, because I'm doing truckloads of work. And so I tried to figure it out myself, and of course I got 28% for school set maths, so that didn't go so well. But on balance, no matter how I cut it, I plus or minus got to a figure like that. And so that was, 85 to 90% of Fiordland that I wasn't working on. And so, I don't care what you think, that's not enough. It's just not good enough. And so Al pretty much thought the same thing, and he sat down and he tried to work out what it would cost to do a decent chunk, so it was a meaningful contribution to New Zealand, so that our protection was. And when he got to the health budget, he gave up, because no government, doesn't matter what flavour it is, it's not going to give you the health budget to do conservation. So in 2013, yeah, he got me to come and help him figure out what we might do with a bunch of other clever people, or other clever people than me. And we did a lot of model design, different types, different ways we could run the organisation to try and increase our effect on the ground and conserve more of New Zealand. And we'd been working with communities a lot for a long time, in one way or another, running volunteers or whatever. But actually we got to a place in the model design and we started with 60 different ways we could work. And we chunked it down to 40 and then to 27 and then to 13 and then to 3. And we wanted to have, the goal was to have New Zealanders doing it for themselves. So to be a New Zealander, it was as important to support the All Blacks and put out your recycling as it was to do some form of conservation in your backyard. And we called that Live Conservation. We went to PwC because we're doing organisational design, and PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, said to us, you can't do that. You can't go from Doc doing it all, being in charge, running around in green uniforms, saving the place, to getting everyone else to do it instead. That won't work. And so, so we had to go back to one of the other models, which was that we would do it with people. And of course, if you're a business person, you'd call that co-production. But of course, we call it working in partnership. So that was the model we moved to. And there was already a groundswell of change in the community. And I think as part of our shifting our way of thinking as an organisation, it helped grow the enthusiasm for natural places and to give it some sort of transactional ability. In other words, people could actually get involved and do stuff. They already were, but it started to grow exponentially. In fact, the model that we came to has been outrun by the community. The community is moving to, and this room is testament to, the Live Conservation model. And I think, anyway, I better carry on. So, and so we all know the story about the predators. One thing that's often not well understood in the community at large is that already we are spending millions and millions of taxpayer dollars and hard-won farmer incomes on trying to control these pests. And by changing our philosophy, our approach, our thinking, and our structure and our way of working, we can do that instead of having a single focus, to having a more combined outcome focus that produces multiple benefits. And I just think myself, we've just concluded, or we're just undertaking, in fact I hope it's happening right now, a pest control operation in the northern Ruahinis. And last night I signed off an osprey job for the bottom of the Kawikas. And so those two bits of land are actually butt onto each other. And so that collaborative way of working, you'd think, well, it's not, why didn't we get there a long time ago? But regardless, it's actually producing big benefits right now. And we didn't always have the technology. So Breaksea, when I was in Fiordland, had a bit to do with Breaksea. It's a tiny wee place about the size of a postage stamp. And we were told at the time, we eradicated rats from there, and we were told at the time it couldn't be done. Seems unlikely, you're wasting your money, why don't you put your money into something more important? And then they went on, they were successful. And there's a terrible video of a whole lot of jokers running around with slashes wearing stubbies and bulla gumboots. Campbell Island was about 10,000 hectares and they were successful there, and the story goes on. And now we are world leaders in this work. In island eradication, the Department of Conservation and New Zealand in general is seen as world leaders. The Battle for Our Birds program is also, so I'm talking you through just work at the moment. The Battle for Our Birds program has grown to nearly 800,000 hectares. We've been supported by the government to the tune of $20 million a year. And wherever we're working, we're providing benefit. Lou was down in the Hollyford the other day with Andy Lowe, who's a major contributor to this project, the Cape to City project. And I was told about 12 years ago that if we're not careful, there'll be no kaka left on the mainland. And in one tree, they counted 40 kaka. Kaka are going off in the Hollyford Valley. And so the Battle for Our Birds program, wherever it's applied, it's successful. A lot of you will know the story about Kiwi. And the trick is, you don't have to actually eradicate everything. What you're trying to do is take the decline and tip it to a 2% positive increase. If you can make that one shift, you've made a difference. And we're finding that the landscape scale work, combined with a bit of government funding and technical expertise from the department, combined with willing partners, great innovation from the marketplace, is really, really contributing to not only Kiwi, but most of the places and scale of project that we work in. Predator-free New Zealand, you've had some discussion this morning from Ed, and you get your heads around that, but actually that's got very many different faces. And I think it doesn't matter much what your place looks like. You can make a difference at your place. And whether you're in a residential community on the hills in Wellington, or whether you own a backcountry farm block in the back of the Waikato, Predator-free is an opportunity that can be realised anywhere in the country. And it is aspirational, but to achieve an aspiration, you've got to be inspired to give it a go. Places like Reconnecting Northland, another great project involving the Tyndall Foundation and a range of other supporters. And nobody could do this on their own. Our vision is New Zealand's the greatest living space. And when I first heard that, I've got a pretty rustic forestry background, and when I first heard it, I thought, that's a bit naff, New Zealand's greatest living space on earth. But actually what it was designed to mean, and what Al intended it to mean, was we can't do this by ourselves. Nobody. We won't be successful if we try to do this by ourselves. And so we need these collaborative programs, and of course, you'll know that. So Cape to City. And so transforming biodiversity, the names on in the little writing under the title, they change from time to time, but the commitment, the energy, the intellect, the thought, the drive, the passion, the stuff that goes to make that work, you'll find that wherever you find the people with the will. And that's what we've got in this room. And that's what we're trying to foster. That's what New Zealand's greatest living space actually looks like. That's what New Zealanders doing it for themselves actually looks like. And here's a range of other large landscape scale projects. The Abel Tasman projects, Yarnzoon, Taranaki Monga, and Predator-free Wellington. When I was a young fella, I used to go to Totranui all the time, which is in the Abel Tasman. And I watched Weka disappear from there. I mean, Weka, really? And I thought, oh, that's sad. And I said, why don't we do something in the Abel Tasman? They said, well, it's not a high priority site. It's been cut over, it's regenerating, it's full of gores, it's got pests everywhere. And so it's unlikely that the Department of Conservation, based on national priorities and spending taxpayers' money on the most important things, would ever have invested in Abel Tasman beyond the recreation. So the joined up community effort is key to restoring that place. Restoring biodiversity for the first time ever, we have a threatened species strategy. Don't ask me why it's the first time ever, but we now have one. And Julie Knaff, who's in this room, who works for us, is going to lead that bundle of work and try and make a difference. One of the things we have to do is get that strategy out for people to interpret for their place. We do know that where we work, we win. So we are having some wins. I was involved in takahe. There were 55 breeding pair of takahe left in the world when I went to Fiordland. And I don't know what the breeding pair number is now, but the total number has gone from just under 200 to over 300 since I went to Fiordland. So where we work, we can win. We can be successful. And there's other stories that are the same. But actually, she's not all over Rover. If you look up there, there's challenges all around us. Kauri dieback, myrtle rust, kia, and a range of other endangered species, including seabirds. So there's plenty to do. And there's no silver bullet either. And you will have heard people talk about the different technologies. You heard a discussion earlier about gene technology. We've got a diversity of species, a diversity of landscapes, and a diversity of agents of decline. And so we need a diversity of solutions to help combat that. And so we need to be open to exploring all our available options and the configuration that we might have to put together to make those work. I'll just leave you with that. That's sort of a passing. So landscape scale is becoming the focus, and all you people in this room have an influence in that one way or another. And community-based operations working in a joined-up fashion to a common purpose is sort of what the future looks like, and that's where the wins will come. That's me.